Pistol Whip. Let's talk about it. So, Pistol Whip is mostly a VR game. I believe it is available on most VR systems. But Pistol Whip is a game where you have, obviously, pistols, and you can also, quote unquote, whip things. So, the game is basically a bunch of music tracks put together. There's some like arcade modes and some stuff like that. But mostly for the average person, it's a lot like Beat Saber, but instead of just some boring old things coming at you, having to dodge your way in and out of it and slice things, you actually get multiple different guns and you get to shoot at the targets and you get to pop these little figures and things like that, and you can also pistol whip some of them as well, hence the name Pistol Whip. So there's a bunch of different songs with this game from all different styles of like EDM, techno, dubstep, all kinds of different music like that. They're all really good, interesting, sound good, whatever. The maps are all different, unique, and interesting as well. So it's not like you really ever get bored. Uh, if you do get bored with it, there's multiple different ways to edit and change Pistol Whip to make it more interesting. There's multiple different difficulty settings as far as like veteran, normal, hardened, easy, whatever. But even beyond that, there's a lot of customization you can do, as into, using shotguns only, like shotgun pistols, using revolvers only, being able to dual wield, enemies firing at you as soon as they show up, all kinds of things like that. Being able to use your fists only being able to pistol whip, all kinds of things to change the intensity of the game, to change the difficulty, and just to give you an overall, basically a completely different experience. Now, originally, when I got this game, it had just come out, so this was like 3 years ago. And at first, there was only like 6 maps. It wasn't that interesting, wasn't that cool, whatever. I played on the Quest 2, but now there's been multiple updates to the game, like lots of them. The developers are really on top of this game. There's also been a campaign mode that's been added. And the campaign mode actually does a really good job at telling a story. It's really interesting. It's not very boring at all. And the campaign maps are all pretty unique as well. They're not really much like the regular ones that you run into in the game. And a bunch of the campaign modes introduce different weapons that you end up seeing from new updates in the game itself, but the campaign mode kind of explains to you why they're there. So overall, the campaign keeps getting updated a lot. So some of the bugs and stuff that have existed in this game have been fixed. A lot of stuff's been added. New maps have been added. New game styles have been added. New guns have been added all the time. They add new skins, new achievements. They've changed different things as far as how you can play the game, different styles of difficulty settings. They've added global ranking systems. They've added basically multiplayer mode where you can just use one headset and pass it around to all your friends, and everyone can take turns playing the game. Lots of things like that. I'm pretty sure you can challenge your friends if they have their own headset as well and kind of do like a face-off thing. I don't know because I haven't personally done that yet. However, again, there's a lot of different stuff there. There's a lot of different maps. I think in total, last time I was on, there's like 36 different maps or something like that. Not quite sure. There's lots of different guns. There's lots of different paint colors and skins, and like 9 different gunshot sounds and a bunch of stuff like that. All of the guns are kind of unique from each other, different from, just being like basically the same thing. There's like water guns you can use, there's space weapons, there's lots of like toyish looking guns, there's historical weapons, all kinds of stuff like that. So this game really is not that boring. Overall, on the Quest 2, the graphics are pretty mid. But again, most games on the Quest 2 don't have very high end graphics because the Quest has to render everything itself. But that is not to say that the game does not look good. The game still looks fantastic. The way it's put together, everything makes it look pretty smooth. The game itself doesn't have like 4K graphics or anything like that where everything is like, oh look, it looks just like a real person. But this game, this system can't do that. So it wouldn't look that way. No, this is kind of like cartoonish, kind of like drawn characters, so they don't look like super realistic or anything, but that doesn't take away from the game itself. It's still really interesting, it's still a lot of fun to play. Like I said, there's a lot of different types of songs, there's a lot of different game modes, there's a lot of different difficulty settings, there's even random modes, so that you can just hit random mode and be thrown into a challenge that you have no idea what it's going to be before you get into it. Super fun to mess around with that too. There's lots of different stuff that comes out for this game like that. And again, developers keep on top of it, so there's not really very many glitches. I personally haven't run into any issues with it. I love playing the game. It's super fun. One thing I will say though, and I've heard some people say about it, is if you go into this game expecting it to be like super tame and you can just chill, it's not that high intensity or whatever, there's a lot of stuff you have to do in the game, like bending over to avoid obstacles or like leaning left to right, just like you would in Beat Saber. So on some of the high intensity maps or on higher difficulties, as well as I forgot to mention, but you can dodge the bullets coming from enemy players. So you can also do that. And all in all, that ends up giving you a really good workout between dodging the bullets, ducking under barriers, leaning left to right to move out of the way of barriers. But it also gives you the feel of the Matrix. Like when you see the enemy bullets all coming at you and you're like trying to like lean backwards and avoid getting hit and stuff like that. It really just ends up feeling like you're Neo in the Matrix, and that's a lot of fun. Matrix is a little bit old, but it's a really fun game. So I would definitely give it a check. This is just one of the VR games that I would highly recommend. There's not a lot of them that are like super good, but this is one of the ones that I personally think is a really good VR game. Again, they keep on top of the game. It's really smooth. There's a lot of stuff to do, an interesting campaign, lots of different weapons, lots of customization. So it's definitely just packed full of stuff to do, and it is definitely worth checking out. Now, that does not mean that it's got like 40, 50 hours of gameplay. There is quite a lot of gameplay packed into it. However, it's still the same basic maps, but because of all the unique challenges and stuff you can throw on, it does end up giving you a lot of playback time, where you can just go back in, change the challenge up, and play it again. And it doesn't really get dull either. Some of the maps do need a little bit of practice before you can actually finish them, but what would it be if it wasn't a challenge?